our explanation about the reality from the Blessed Quran, the Holy Quran, and from the Blessed Prophet Muhammad, Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, we have a perception of Russia that the Russian people would be very interested to learn about. Who is the leader of Rome today? Is it Greece? The Greek always remind us that they had built Hagia Sophia when Christianity has not yet reached Russia. And when the Russians wanted to know which religion to join, when the delegation came to Constantinople and they saw Hagia Sophia, they were so impressed that they went back and reported, and Russia decided to join Orthodox Christianity. The Greek never tire in telling us they were Christians before the Russians. But today the leader of the Orthodox Christian world is indeed Russia. Russia is the biggest, the most powerful, leading nation in the Orthodox Christian world. So Russia is the leader of Rome today. If the CIA, have you heard me? If the CIA sends weapons and arms, and before that it was Britain doing it, Britain sending weapons to Imam Shamil, Britain sending weapons and sending money to Imam Shamil in the Caucasus to launch a rebellion against Russia, Tsarist Russia. If Britain is and the United States of America are doing the dirty work of providing the weapons and providing the training and providing the financing as they're doing now for this bogus ISIS, and Russia responds to protect itself from this attack that is being launched through Muslims by the United States and Britain, are you going to blame Russia for seeking to protect itself when the CIA comes to stab you in the back at Grozny with the Chechens? Even the Chechens themselves admit that they were getting weapons from the CIA, from the Americans. So you're going to hold that against Russia? No, the Russians are absolutely correct in protecting Russia from this attack which is being launched by the CIA using Muslims. Muslims who have eyes and can't see because Allah prohibits you from taking weapons from the Americans and therefore from Saudi Arabia. So therefore, we have come to the conclusion that between Islam and Russia there is a link. The link is that the Quran recognizes Orthodox Christians, or Rome, to be those who at this time in history would be the closest in love and affection for Muslims. That is already taking place. I told you I went to Russia, I went to Moscow last July, and I spoke at the State University of Moscow, and I got a very respectful and a very friendly welcome and response, and I was invited to come again. And since I spoke in Moscow and since my lectures have been coming on the internet, I'm receiving emails from all over the Orthodox Christian world, all of them showing their approval and their fondness for this exposition of Islam that they're hearing from me, so different from Ottoman Islam. Judeo-Christian Zionist Alliance have been targeting Russia for the longest while. Even before the Zionist movement had been established, they were already targeting Russia. The Crimean War was fought before the Zionist movement was established. The Crimean War was the last effort that they made in warfare to try to crush Russia. And they did defeat Russia in the Crimean War, but Russia was able to survive and to turn the table within a few years. Russia was able to hold on to Crimea in the Crimean War, but with severe limitations on her use of Crimea as a naval port. But within a few years, Russia was able to turn the tables, and Russia survived. Russia survived the First World War, although Russia took the brunt of fatalities in the First World War. But at the conclusion of the First World War, they attacked Russia. The allies of Russia attacked Russia. They were the ones who launched the Bolshevik Revolution to stab Russia in the back. When the Russian troops were within an arm's length of Constantinople, and the alliance had made a pact, an agreement, that Russia would get Constantinople. But they didn't want Russia to get Constantinople. They say one thing with their lips, but in their heart there's something else. And so when the Russian troops were close to Constantinople, they launched the Bolshevik Revolution, which was done by Russian Jews. That's well known. And then the new Bolshevik government took Russia out of the war. Why? When the Russian troops are an arm's length from Constantinople, why do you take Russia out of the war? The answer is because the Bolsheviks do not want Russia to get Constantinople. That's why. And up to this day, they don't want Russia to get Constantinople. That's why. So they have to do whatever they can do to weaken Russia. So they gave Russia the Bolshevik Revolution and then the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union, in the most Christian of all states, Russia, holy Russia. Holy Russia, why do I use the word holy? Because Russia is so pious in its affection for Christianity. That's why, you dum-dum. You can't understand why I'm using the word holy? Russia is the most sincere of all in its attachment to Christianity. The heart of Russia is spiritual. The heart of Russia, of Washington and London, is barbarian. But the heart of Russia is spiritual. But that's too difficult for you to understand, so you go and join ISIS. That's where you belong. Russia is intensely Christian. So they brought the Soviet Union as an atheist state to destroy Christianity. Is that so difficult for you to understand? The Soviet Union was at its heart a Zionist plant, even though the Soviets did not themselves realize it. The Zionists were at the heart of it. And for some 60, 70 years, the Soviet Union crushed and crushed and crushed the Orthodox Christian Church in Russia to destroy Russia. But Russia survived. It was the Zionist Soviet Union that set the trap for Russia when they handed over Crimea to Ukraine in 1952. Why did they hand over Crimea to Ukraine? Why? Will you not ask yourself before you join ISIS? The reason why they handed over Crimea to Ukraine, although Crimea is Russian territory, without asking the people of Russia for their permission, without speaking to the people of Crimea. No, the Soviet Union did nothing of the sort. They just handed over Crimea to Ukraine in order to set the stage for a day which is to come when Russia will be cut down to size and will pose no threat at all to anyone. And then came the time when they didn't need the Soviet Union anymore. It had done all the dirty work they wanted it to do, include forcing Turkey to join NATO. That's what the Soviet Union did. Then they dismantled the Soviet Union with the color revolution. They did it. So that when the Soviet Union was dismantled, then all the former states of the Soviet Union, which were not a part of the Russian Federation, could now be invited to join NATO. But the biggest plum of all was Ukraine. They wanted Ukraine in NATO. They finally got a coup d'etat, the Maidan demonstrations and the snipers who shot people, mercenaries out there shooting people to try to overthrow the government. But Washington and London have short memories. They only fixated about an aeroplane that was shot down from the sky, which they know about. They know who did it. And of course the Malaysians know very well who did it. But they wouldn't talk about who it is who caused the government of Ukraine to be overthrown. The reason why they wanted this regime change in Ukraine is not so difficult to understand. It's a part and parcel of the effort to stab Russia in the back, so that a pro-Western government in Ukraine would then give Russia marching orders out of Crimea. And once Russia is denied Crimea as a naval port, Russia is no longer a superpower, because Russia would not have a warm water port anymore. But they planned their plans, and Allah planned His plans. And it happened in our lifetime. It only happened recently, earlier this year. The most momentous event in the history of the Zionist movement occurred just earlier this year. What was it? Within 2 weeks, Russia was able to reclaim Crimea without a shot being fired. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant on the part of Russia to get the people of Crimea to choose, and they chose Russia. The parliament, which was a legally elected parliament of Crimea, which was recognized as representative of the people of Crimea, that parliament voted for joining Russia. And then Russia accepted the vote. And so Crimea was restored to Russia. When Crimea was restored to Russia, things changed in the Black Sea. Russia now has no restrictions whatsoever on the use of Crimea. Russian power can now be extended all over the Black Sea, which means all the littoral states. The Russian territorial waters, the Russian economic zone now expands because Crimea is now a part of Russia. So the Black Sea is now a Russian sea. And the first people to realize that things have now changed, the Turkish government. Turkey is still a member of NATO, yes. But Turkey has realized that the strategic environment has changed. And that is why Turkey had to break ranks with NATO. At a time when the Europeans are attempting to isolate Russia, at that time with sanctions, with the Russian ruble reeling, at that time Turkey chose to slap them on their face.